So it's early in the morning and I'm in the studio and I woke up from this dream and I saw a color. It was like this aqua blue color. I can still see it in my head, but I'm gonna try to mix it up. And then I also, not only did I see in the dream like the color, I saw these works on paper. And I'm gonna try to execute that vision now. One, it's fresh in my mind. First, I'm gonna journal about it because that's what I want to do when I wake up right away is take some notes, and maybe I'll try to make the color, and then I'll try to implement that on the larger works. I can't say that when I have a vision it always translates, but there usually is an element or something, to consider when it's so strong in your mind's eye, in your dream, and, in that external vision, the vision beyond the 3D world, I guess is what I would say. The linear world is what I call it, because when we go into all worlds, there's lots of different possibilities and we can access ideas and information, and we don't have to be limited, and that's what I love about abstraction, actually. So I'm gonna go journal this out and show you that, and then I'll even show you me trying to work out this dream and the idea, and talk a little bit more about dreams and our inner visions. And but first I need coffee. All right, I have the coffee. Now we can get started. So here we are, early in the morning. That's the best time for me to be creative because I love waking up from the dreams. I love the night, the blackness of the night and the way it turns in the morning. And I love the silence. Everything seems so still because it's just that quiet night. And there's so much to be gleaned from that moment. So that's exciting to me. Of course, there's always coffee and then to help. So my daily habit is to be creative every day. I'm working on larger work right now, you can see in the background. But if I can't spend a long time, I will turn to my sketchbooks. And this is just a small sketchbook, and I have a video about this small sketchbook, how to start an expressive drawing practice, and I'll put that up here in the little thing there. And then this is I've painted the cover of just a black book. Actually, here's one that's just gessoed. They're essentially just black books that you can find for cheap usually, and just make your own more interesting sketchbook. Kind of the smaller sizes. What I like is I can journal in this and I can carry it around, with me. And if I have a thought, I can write it down. And then I have this cheap composition notebook that can really get free and loose in. But you really can do that without anything you're doing. My idea of taking this cheap composition notebook was basically to really take the pressure off, to really let loose, to really be to really also see, can I really just like create with anything? And that's what I'm interested in as an artist. We don't have to limit ourselves to like what we've been told, or maybe we don't have access to the like most expensive material. So how do we use art and creativity with what we have and show up? To me, those are some of the most creative moments, is when you can use what you have, or find a new way in despite the obstacle. Because we all know there's many obstacles, not just in like artwork, but in life, right? So sometimes I wake up from a dream with a word or a thought or an image, or you know, a sentiment of an emotion that with a memory attached to it. And for me, I like to run out into the studio and write it down, or let it come out onto the page and surface. And what I found is the more I'm making these videos and the more I'm heavily creating, there's like way more dreams, there's way more ideas just waking me up, which isn't necessarily a negative thing, especially if you've been locked up forever like I have in the past. Eventually, you know, it's good to have the other side come where it's just full of ideas. But that can also be a stumbling block as well. So it's learning how to navigate all of that, right? the blocks, the fear, and also when it's heavily rushing in, because that can be like the opposite problem. But I mean, it's better to have it rushing in than to be like completely locked up. I mean, that's one thing I'm interested in sharing these videos and these ideas and being vulnerable, is to have a real insight into how hard it can be, and then how fun it can be, and how there's everything in between. And that's really important to remember about art and life. Because some days we can be really up, and other days we can be really down. But how do we turn it all around, and how do we stay in it when it's not going well, and how do we pull ourselves back up and get back into the game of art and life when, you know, it's been challenging? This is just my one sketchbook that I really enjoy taking around. It holds a lot of emotion and memory and feeling and thought, and it is a place where you can just let things be, and it can be private, or you can dare to show it someday. And I do some writing in between, so I kind of just let it be what it wants to be, and like now today I'm gonna use this book to access that dream that I was just talking about, that I woke up from, and maybe take some notes. Basically, I've been really into Cy Twombly lately, and well, a lot of artists, right? But some are very prominent and dominant in my mind right now. Franz Klein, because I was working on that black painting and mark making experiment, and Paul Klee, because me and another artist friend were talking a lot about him, and I just remember how much I love his work. And then of course Joan Moreau, because he's such into the automatic drawing and automatism, which I love to no ends. Like it's my jam. So the color that I was seeing was like an aqua blue, but it wasn't totally turquoise. It was more green. So when I think about color, the way I work, even when I'm mixing, I have like these dominant colors that I just know that I work with a lot. And that's how I know my color. And then I don't always mix, because I'm kind of like a lazy artist. I want to like grab it and go, and that's just, I don't know how it goes. When you know that about yourself, though, you won't like spend 80 million years trying to do all this other stuff. You'll just figure out a different way. That's important. So know what works for you, and there isn't a right or wrong. It's about you finding your, your process. I would squeeze that out if I didn't want to ruin my $800 phone. Anyway. So I'm thinking that I'm going to use this golden color. It's like an indigo. And then this green color and this blue and possibly some white. I just buy acrylic, so I just get latex house paint and dump it down into this container and use the white that way, because I just use so much white that it's great. I don't know, I'd be buying titanium white in gallons, like, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. People forget that like early abstract expressionists were using like house paint and those paintings are still standing strong. Sometimes I'll just like mix a color on a just plain sheet of paper. That's kind of how I'll make a palette, and then sometimes I'll mix all these colors on a piece of paper and I'll like use the paper again in a different way. So mixing is really also gonna be a determination of your eye. Oh no. Whoops. That wasn't supposed to happen. See, that's the thing about life and art. You never know. You can't always plan things. You kind of have to learn to adapt and move on and not worry about it so much. So there's a color that I just mixed. Or I don't always mix the color, but because I had this dream, I decided that I would try to mix it from the dream. And it's important to pay attention to those things, right? When all those little things that can light us up. One good thing is to take notes about like your color. If you do mix the color, so you could go back to it. And then you would have the color note. I definitely don't always do this. I'm just doing it. I'm just gonna be honest. But I'm doing it because I had the dream and I'm going off of this idea and I trying something new. So this is a good example of it doesn't always have to be done the same way. And if you decide the next day to have a new pathway in, then you can take a new path, you know? We can kind of get hung up that there's only one way to go, but there's actually many ways to go. And so if you have a new idea, why not just try it out? If it doesn't work or if it doesn't stick with you, it's not the end of the world. You just do something else. And that's about how you make a painting. It's like you just keep going through it, and depending on where you are in the years of the practice, and you know, it's going to be different, right? And it isn't just that easy, I guess, either, because there's all the thoughts you got to move through. There's all the whatever stuff you're carrying around. But it could be that easy if we just like learn to let it go more and more and more. And you know, I'm telling myself that to myself right now as I make this video. Not always perfect, but it is possible to like have a new idea, learn from a dream, have that great conversation with someone you love, and have like this epiphany in that moment, and it could change the direction of your life and art, right? And those are the exciting moments that we look for, and like the little surprises and the hidden mysteries and the magic. And yes, That excites me to no end, if you couldn't tell. So now I might make some notations about what the dream was about. I'll just sketch out some some pretend paintings in here. I could see where those backgrounds were this like blue, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna admit this, there was like a lot of more space in my work. Did I just admit that? It was only in my dreams though. So maybe I'll just sketch some random shapes around the page. This is just from my head, from my dream. If you need to maybe do this, you can look out at nature, you can look out at your window, you could look around, and you could just abstractly sketch what's around you, which I'll make another video about that. But one thing I have to say is if you're really making a lot of things, no matter what it is, you're gonna gain momentum, and it's just gonna be like pouring out of you. So that's a little wet. What I can do sometimes when things are a little wet, you can take a hairdryer. A lot of dreams last night, and things happen. Memories come in. Dreams are strange. So I've just been journaling about the dream, and that's another great way. You don't necessarily have to start from a dream, but in the morning you could start journaling the experience, because so you're in that state right before waking, and you're not fully awake yet, so you can access maybe more things. Sometimes that's scary, right? If we start writing, we don't really want to like see what's coming out on the page. And that's often why we stop making art, or we don't go that extra step, because we lock up into the fear of the moment of what's there. But if you're just making it personal, you can just close the book and put it away somewhere. And then someday maybe you'll want to share. It changes, right? So you gotta take stock with where you are, and open up little by little. Sometimes the opening can come really fast, and that can be hard to handle. So if you're having one of those, I would just be gentle, extra gentle with yourself, because sometimes the universe wants to redirect you onto a path, or get you to notice something, or to finally take that step, and the explosion comes. I know that all too well. It's happened many, 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 many times in my life, and I hope it doesn't happen anymore, but I'm not gonna say never, because I would be naive if I said that. Never say never. It's just important to realize that sometimes things are more intense and sometimes things are more gentle. And when you think about those personal experiences and you're working on this expressive kind of artwork, you can really like bring those kinds of ideas right into the work. But you gotta learn to work with it all. And if you're right in the middle of something really crazy, you might not be able to apply that principle into the work, but you really can do it over time if you want. And if you want to, all this stuff comes up to you, what you want to do. It's really important to realize that because, you know, then you can start taking back all of your power. And that is super exciting. Woohoo! Now I'm just gonna prepare some paper. These are just loose watercolor sheets. Actually, on Dick Blick, Jack Richardson watercolor paper, £1.35 pound. You can buy it in bulk. This is a 12 by 18 size. And like the way I saw these paintings in my head, I actually had the backgrounds just painted blue. I'm gonna probably add some white into this so it's not so dark. So I'm gonna do like probably several of these blue backgrounds. I'm not worried if I get the full coverage of it because there's gonna be more things going on. Once I start working on top of this. I think I still want even more white. That's the thing, you can lighten the value by adding more white. White is the essential component. Sometimes it just feels really great to put color across the page and nothing else. It's basically, I wanted these backgrounds to be this color because it's based off of the dream, but I really don't know what I'm doing. All I have was that little piece of information, but I'm taking it and running with it. And sometimes that's where we gotta start, is take that the little idea, the little things that spark our imagination and investigate it. And it might not be anything, but it might be really, really important in the end. But if you don't give it attention and time and don't open to it, you'll never know if it was important or not. These are the moments we can pay attention to, not just in our dream state, but in regular life. So here's a good point, like what sometimes I'll do with my leftover paint. One project, I'll wipe off the excess in a sketchbook. And grab some mark making materials, whatever's around really. There's always something around. And I kind of just go loosely into having a tiny moment, right? So you can have a tiny moment and then a bigger moment. And it kind of all leads into each other. That's why I really stress it's important to have a small practice. But that's just for me, and maybe that doesn't work for you. But I just would like, if you don't have a small drawing practice, I'd like you to start one and tell me after 21 days how you're feeling. So I have these blue papers that I painted, that blue color for my dream. And the idea is to just work. The idea is to just work into them with everything else that I do, expressive mark making and drawing, and just kind of rotate through. But it started with a dream, and that was important to me to kind of investigate. You know, it's just a starting point. I don't really know. I don't always choose the dream, like, I don't always choose to work this way. But today I decided that I would just see what happens if I try. So this is just a spray bottle. I like to vary the opacities of the paints, and acrylic works really well with water, so I'll just have spray bottles around. And then I'll take scrap paper and just work it into the work. And now the surface is kind of wet, so I might take another piece of scrap paper and blot it gently. Just lifting the paint. So I would maybe take a paper towel. This is a tissue though, because I don't know where a paper towel is. And let it bleed into the surface. Just gonna experiment with this idea because I was basing it off of the dream that I had. I don't really know what I'm doing. It was more just finding the color blue and starting from there.
So we really can just start from anywhere. I was working with the color I saw in the dream as an inspiration, as a motivation, as an entryway into this whole video and experience. And right now I'm just going through, working on that colored layer, the blue colored layer, and mark making and switching in and out and just enjoying myself. And I'm sure it will change, but it's all about starting from that inspired moment, and that can look different for you. It doesn't have to necessarily be a dream, but it can be the thing that sparks the desire and moves you forward and gets you going and, gets you showing up to the work.
So that concludes this video about starting with a dream. And the thing about that is, I hope you learn that you can start anywhere. It doesn't always have to be technical. You can actually start with a feeling and start with the emotion and start with the idea and intentionality. And that can also inform the way the technical starts to flow together. So I wanted to leave you with something I found. I'll read it to you. These aren't really rules, but it's a personal ethos that I have about creating this work. And so it's follow the feeling. One thing informs another. Welcome the detours. Look, really look. And that means really look internally, deep within. Really look at what is around you and surrounding you and what lights you up. Looking is important. It can't feel boring. It should have been number 1. These aren't really numbered though, they're just little stars, so. But I really don't want to feel bored in art or life. Embrace mistakes and failures, because those things are going to happen. It's okay to use the word. I encourage you to use the word. I like to use the word. If you don't, that's fine, because that is how you learn. You learn from the mistakes and failures. So if you don't fail, you're not really learning. And of course, that doesn't mean you always have to fail in order to learn. But in this process, in this creative process, in this experimental art process, there's a lot of experimentation and a lot of things go in the trash or get painted over. So, and that's okay. The next one. So don't discredit anything. That's a really good one, because you never know what's going to open you. You never know what's going to be possible. That's an art in life, you know. You might have overlooked something and then entered into it and had the most wonderful experience, and it changed your life. Or same thing with an artwork. You might have discredited a certain thing because you didn't think it should be that way, or something someone told you not to do. But what if you just do the opposite and you find out for yourself, and then it becomes your favorite thing? So don't discredit anything. You get my point? Have fun like a wild child. Yeah, you know, children have that open curiosity, and we kind of get that taken out of us as we go through life and all these crazy experiences. But remember that there's always that pure childlike nature that we're able to capture by like freeing ourselves from restriction and rules, and being a little bit rebellious, and daring to go out on the edge, and, you know, really investigate what that freedom could mean for you, not just in art but in life. And then the next one is find freedom. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Becoming a wild child and finding freedom. Just finding freedom for yourself internally and for your art practice. And what that can look like and mean for you. And it's probably going to be different for everyone, because we don't have the same idea of what that means. Like in my case, it means being rebellious and not following the status quo, and daring to go past the boundaries of what we've been told, sold, and shown. And that really makes me the artist that I am, and it makes me the person that I am. Oh, and the last one, go backwards to go forwards. It's not like I always want to go backwards. And sometimes when you fall down, it could really be, you know, you fall back a lot. But what I found, not just in art but in life, is like when you have the blowback, well, when you kind of have a comeback too, once you get out of that backwards part. So it's like 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. We go together. You know that. You have to get in the creative dance, right? You have to let it flow. Sometimes you have to go backwards in order to go forwards. It's just part of the process, and so be okay with that. So those are some of my like personal studio ethos, and like they even move into my like life values, or whatever you want to call them. So when you investigate all that and get closer to yourself and allow yourself to let it be what it is for you, and that's really the most important thing, because it is going to be different, right? Where you didn't have the same experiences, we maybe don't even have the same interests in the directions that we're going to move into. But it's getting more comfortable with all of it, and like then being willing to take that on and say, like, this is what it is for me. Of course, it could change. And so allowing yourself that freedom to be fluid and move in those moments, and keep dreaming and keep creating, and thank you for being here.